You just get us talking about bourbon? The whole conversation. That's pathetic. We get on the stream. We good? Yeah. Good. All right, 6:01 here, we'll call to order the negotiations meeting here with the Basin Administrators Association. We're facilitating tonight, so I'll turn it over here to Mr. Thompson to get started.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you for coming. Good to see you again for another night of negotiations. We got all of our ground rules taken care of and cleaned up last time, so we've had an opportunity to put some proposals together and them out in just a minute, and kind of looks like you've got the same, so go ahead and start with that unless there's anything else to touch base on ahead of time.
No, did we set an agenda for this, or are we gonna kind of, I can't remember getting an agenda for it.
I think moving forward, you know.
We'll set at the end of the meeting.
Yeah, I think we'll, and then I would imagine you would facilitate the next meeting that we'll be putting together the minutes and that.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and hand out to you copies of the board proposal. You want, and I got a couple extras. You want just have a clean one? I think we're good. Okay. Good. I'll go ahead and start walking through, so by all means stop me if I'm not being clear or if there's something you'd like to talk a little bit more about. Starting with board proposal number 1, this is just maybe a little bit more of housekeeping type language cleanup. We're looking at there, just adding ND in front of the Education Standards and Practices Board. And also the ND DPI piece there. Don't think there's a whole lot with that one. The second proposal, moving forward, it's kind of getting rid of some, it's supposed to be called legacy language or language from the merger that doesn't really need or have a, I would say doesn't really have a purpose. Just talked about the tuition reimbursements carrying over from reorg and all of that, if we're beyond the time for that. Board proposal number 3, you can see we've got some changes there. Talking a little bit of changing on the contract days there, 261 versus 260, and striking of some additional language in there that is similar legacy language addressing District 1 and District 8 in that first paragraph, and striking a little bit more language later on down there with that exception piece. And I guess as we get into this, one thing, we'll kind of need to more so talk about too is just, contract days and whatnot, just to address various circumstances. And, we certainly like to hear your input on some of those things as we move forward.
260 to 261, it's not asking for like an extra day. That's what folks are currently working, I guess, when HR counted the actual days. So it's 261. So.
Thank you.
So I just want to make sure I was
We had just talked about this yesterday, if you don't mind me just asking something. The 261, does that come from the weeks in the year minus the weekends? Is that where that number comes from?
I will say I did not do the calculation. of that.
There's 365 days, 52 weeks, so 104 weekends. Is that where that comes from?
I think we've, if you're okay with it, Mr. Clausen here, I think, Ms.
I'm
Billy,
not,
you, oh,
I'm not
sorry.
100% sure. Amanda counted it. She counted it like 5 times.
It usually is 261, I think, but
For the leap year,
Usually-
262.
yeah, I think so.
Just for you.
But is that, I mean, where's that number come from? Where does 260 come from? Just that's what it is from June,
Oh, I see. what you're
from
saying.
July to
Yeah.
June 30th?
Yeah.
It's a year
I would assume
minus
it's a full
weekends.
year minus weekends.
So it's 104 weekends, minus 365 minus 104. You said that last night. Why is it not 261? I said, oh.
No.
Christian history,
remember not that.
So, okay.
Good question. Moving on, board proposal number 4, addressing that same 261, inserting in the language for the holidays there, President's Day, day after Thanksgiving. Cleaning up that last little bit. Board proposal number 5, that was a housekeeping type item, getting rid of the 007 versus the 7 with James Bond reference. A little disappointing, but. Board proposal number 6 relates to health insurance. This isn't a substantive change. I'll talk through it here. This is talking about, insurance coverage commencing, the contract that says January 1st to December 31st, but the reality is the practice and how it operates today is October 1st to September 30th. So that's the purpose of, just making sure that the agreement reflects what's happening.
Is this one of the agreements tentatively agreed to with the WIA?
Yeah, something same thing we have with WIA. Yeah. And I should also point out, we looked at the struck where it says the district offers 2 health insurance plans. That isn't in looking to make a change or anything. It's just that it's specifying how many there theoretically could be 3, or there could be whatnot. That's not, don't take that as a, desire to make a change on that. Board proposal number 7, again, moving to James Bond reference. And board proposal number 8. This is in reference to the sick leave. And this is, we had the same proposal with WIA. And I want to preface my comments by making it clear that what we're trying to address here is, potentially there are times where sick leave can be not used correctly. I want to make sure that that's not construed as like a blanket statement, by any means that everybody's doing that. Don't take it that way. But, there are circumstances where you've got, the very common taking every Friday or, every Monday and those sorts of things. And you see a pattern. Well, the way the agreement is specified right now is you need 5 consecutive contracted days of absence before, you can ask for some sort of written verification or whatnot. What we're looking at is moving it back to an absence maybe required, verification may be required at the discretion of the superintendent. Actually, I think I have a typo on that, but the idea is no one's interested in policing this if you take, the day, that sort of thing. It's when there are patterns seen or, I suppose if.
But it could be abused by someone if they didn't like someone, they could make them bring a note every time they took the sick day.
I think that would be
And it'd be allowed. under the
problematic.
agreement.
Well, I don't think that, discretion has to be, administered reasonably. It's not a carte blanche. I could now request, and we can modify I'm clear on that. It's not designed to be we're gonna require it every time, because candidly, no one's gonna go through and you need another FTE to handle that. But it's the situation, I mean, you can imagine, you just take, for example, if Seth Thompson takes sick leave and I've got Facebook posts of me on my Harley, you know, that's a one-day example, but you know, I don't know that you'd even need it to check it out there because you have to prove. But what I'm saying is it gives some latitude for the superintendent to address.
Now, if a situation like that is already there where it's, you see them there, isn't that something that can already be addressed through?
It is, yeah. I don't know that it's the best example. I was just trying to come up
Yeah,
with.
because that's like fraud, you're lying,
Yeah.
your boss can write you up because they
Oh,
saw
yeah.
that.
You could do that today, yep.
But I mean, if like I got sick one day, I tried to get into the doctor that day, I couldn't get in. If I get a request, I couldn't get in, I couldn't get a note. Now I'm gonna get written up.
Well, we can, you know, these were similar to some of the questions we got on the initial proposal with WIA.
Yeah.
I mean, there may be some other potential verifications or other ways to do that. At the same time, if a person is sick and you make an attempt to do that, that's not gonna be, you know, grounds for any viable discipline. I mean, that's not a case that's gonna be successful. If you're not feeling good, I tried to get in and I couldn't. Again, I think you can see kind of what we're
Oh, I understand.
looking at.
Yeah, I mean, I was there when it moved from 10 to 5.
Yeah.
Part of that conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it.
And the other thing I would make is point out is we're trying to, you know, keep these, this is rolling out the same as it did with WIA. We already have through our discussions there, you know, there's a few nuances and things and some good questions that have come up with what they have here, so. You know,
You can be supervisor, supposed to say superintendent.
yeah, that was the typo I was mentioning.
Just making sure.
Gotcha. Moving on, the next change, it actually, under the same proposal, but on the next page, relates to, for emergencies and it's up to the superintendent to grant that in the superintendent's discretion. What we were having a discussion about is if it's already in the superintendent's discretion, why do we have a specified amount of days on there? You know, because theoretically, we could have a really bad winter like we did a few years ago where there's maybe 3 days that line up like that. We were just trying to, you know, tweak it up a little bit so that it's not at least construed to be boxed in at 2 days. And that's the intent of what we're looking at there.
So under kind of that thinking though, I mean. And this is something to talk about in the future. Couldn't you wipe out everything and just say all emergency leave will be granted by the superintendent on a case by case basis? How would you have to specify anything?
Yeah, well, I mean, right now it's, you know, emergency leave and additional emergency leave may be granted. You know, I suppose you could, the removal of additional would be, you know, probably enough to say
Yeah.
emergency leave may be granted. Kind of a similar comment the other night to a possible adjustment there. The point is, this is not looking to take something, roll something back here. It's just that right now there's to an extent, arbitrary 2 days identified in there, and there might be other situations. It would be a different story if it was set up with the superintendent having the discretion, then you know, I could see some days. And moving on to the very back page, I think what we've identified there is a proposed 2-year agreement, kind of in keeping with, keeps it in line with the legislative session. That's the same thing we proposed with WIA, keeping it the same. And that is what we have.
Do you want us to would you like to see our proposals, or do you want us to kind of? How do we wanna?
Well, what I was kind of thinking is, maybe walk through your proposals. I envision, you know, I mean, because there's, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I envision there's going to be a handful of things that are going to be pretty straightforward and we can, you know, probably reach TAs on and tentative agreements that we're going to do that. We'll mark that down, and at the next meeting, we would bring, you know, the documents for signing off on those. So, yeah, you know, you'd like to go through yours, would be great.
So we can walk through a little bit here, again, similarly to what you said. And I'm hoping I have the right article, but there was a section that defined administrator. And part of this was also the change in the language that was asked for, and we agreed to when we did the negotiating unit, is using the century code definition of administrator. Because we struck the previous language that said building principals and assistant principals. So we put, you know, that mean all persons there, but then we also, and this should be in red too, actually, this little black between the two.
Okay.
Should be in red also, because it'd be new, it's moving some of that down. So we'd say like, yeah, administrators are this as defined by century code, which is what was in the request for negotiating unit. Then we put that this agreement would apply to those who are acting as building principals, assistant principals. And then we added the athletic director and assistant athletics activities director.
Is that two people?
That's two people. This has been an interesting one. We've done some research on what different administrators are included in what other agreements. And
That's kind of where you're thinking.
there was some big stuff in the air. After our group came to it, we looked at who signed the initial petition. And we looked at, you know, this recent Supreme Court case that, you know, redefined or strengthened the definition of teacher to only include classroom. But we also felt like only comfortable at this time bringing in these two parties who were not covered by any agreement and were on at-will contracts. And they were the only at-will directors in the entire state of North Dakota. And in almost every agreement, I noticed it did have the AD and building ADs. In our case, we have an assistant AD instead of, you know, building ADs, because we have the one building, but the larger school. So that's why we decided to include that position.
Just for clarity, so these two classifications and thus these two people are not currently, they've not been a part of your administrative group.
No.
Respectfully, have you had discussions with them?
Yes.
Okay.
They've asked to be included in part of our group. We brought that to the group and we agreed that we would bring that to the table. But this is among extensive discussions with these parties.
Okay, take a look.
The one was the contracted year. We did do some stuff talking with our people about that. I know you had kind of a similar, or the proposal about the similar area. 9. Our thought was just to kind of get rid of this language altogether and just have a set amount of days. Part of something we've also talked, and this has been a conversation with the group, and part of everything was defining some of the positions also that currently were kind of vague through the creation of central campus. So when we originally, if we go down to here, like the first, like I said, is just 25 days of vacation, just straight across, you know, give them, and that works there. They wouldn't carry over. They would, I believe, vacation days are use them or lose them. So then we went down to the following numbers of days. The one thing we did also was strike the exception that was in there before.
Yep. I think we did.
Yeah, and you also did.
Yeah.
One of the reasons that was asked for in the past was at the discretion of the superintendent because they were creating a new school. They were starting a new campus, and so they wanted extra time during the summer. What we found now that that started is that it's not entirely necessary that those assistants, which is what we want to redefine everybody at Central Campus except for the lead or head, they would become assistants in title. It's not gonna, you know, nobody will, we're hoping to keep everybody at their pay, but it'll kind of clarify, like recently a person was hired as a principal at Central Campus. And it caused a lot of chaos in the district. They're like, oh, what's happening to this person? Oh, you're coming in for this. We just want to be a little bit more like, there's a lead, they run the campus, the rest assist them. And so then we also, put in there to move them to 216. Well, oh, that should have been different there too. It was a 213 that got changed to 16. Sorry.
Say that again.
Under assistant high school principals on the old agreement, it was 213.
Yep.
I forgot to strike that and
Oh.
change that to 260. So all the assistants would be on a 260. And then Central Campus, after talking with them, they were on a 226 this year. They found that that works with, like, they accomplished everything they needed to do. That was a contract and contracted days that worked for them. And then the high school, though, because of some of the extra parts of the high school job, the high school principal, we talked to them to make sure there, and they were on board with continuing the 260 or the 261 would be.
Okay.
Fine there.
Before we go on to the next page, just to look at, the striking of the schedule. So this is, the idea then is to no longer have any sort of, that being tied to tenure, the days off there for years with the district and all of that, just moving away from that flat amount. I'm not saying I like it or dislike it, I'm just, it's,
It was, just
Don't
kind of
always see
simplified.
that.
I guess. Yeah, it was just kind of set a set amount of vacation days that. That a person would bring in, I don't know,
Simplification.
basically just thought it was gonna. There's so many other things that tenure bring, I just thought that was an area that didn't need to be complicated, just be nice.
I'm not being critical of it, just, so it would, but for the folks, for a number of, at least up through years 10, well, up through years 20, it's an increase for all of those folks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Quick question,
go ahead.
question on the 226 in terms of the central campus. What's your guys's, I guess, thoughts on the workload there relative to like the high school that's on a 260, 261?
It is not as big of a workload as for the central campus lead. And again, we're bumping up we're at the 216 over 213 for the assistants, so there's a couple more days where all 6 are in the building, which is gonna help on both ends of the starting the year and ending the year. The work, what we don't want to get into is we're at central campus, we're having coffee in the middle of the summer because there's not the work to be done there. We just don't see for this year that we need to have that for full 260. When we did come together as a campus, we needed the 226s and the 260 because we had so much work to do. We were hiring nearly every day all summer long. The turnover this year and hopefully for years to come is not near as high. We're hiring 3 or 4 through the summer rather than hiring 15 to 20 teachers in that time. So when you take out that big hiring piece, I think it's overloaded there.
There's some added reports and some added work that goes in when you involve the credits at the high school level for the graduation diplomas and some of the different programs that I think our high school principal uses that time and does a lot of that. I think all of the state required reports are due by June 30th. So part of it was like the month of July, there was a lot of one person sitting in an office, not really having a whole lot to do, except for maybe re-dive into data by themselves. So, we do understand, there's hiring still that happens in the summer, but we do have some, a proposal on the next page that I think we would use for some of that, but then we would also talk about giving the district the leeway to maybe vary start times of some of the admins. So that maybe somebody started later in August, but then worked later into June. Like for the assistants in there to have different coverage, but so we don't have all 6 people on at one time and then all being done. And then there's one head admin there. So just some ideas.
So talk to me a little bit about that hiring process. So if we have open positions still in July or August, I would assume obviously someone from the admin team within that building wants to be involved in interviewing and selecting the folks.
Yeah.
So how does that process work currently?
Well, the
If
hope
they're
is
not
we
on
never-
contract, I guess, if we still have some open positions that you're interviewing for and whatnot.
So I can speak to Central Campus on that first year. The district office was very generous with us to allow us to maybe not come back quite as early, like maybe take a couple of extra days where we didn't come in when there wasn't that work to do in August, because we have at least in the summer hiring. Kept track of exactly how many interviews we did, how long we were working, what days we were working. Because a lot of our stuff was J1, so we were working from 4:30 in the morning until noon, and so we had to keep track of all that to verify that we actually were in fact working. But then we were not expected to come in as early in August. And for myself, I was able to kind of bank a couple of days when we got all the paperwork done in June, and I didn't need to be there. I could do a couple of days early. So that's how we worked it initially. But otherwise, in practice, you just work. You just
You were working out.
get the hiring done, and yeah.
All right.
I would say, there's some people that they're off contract that you can call. I can probably ask Jason here. He was there, he could call us to see if we'd be available to come in for an interview, but if we're not, there's nothing you can really do there. You're off contract, Now you want to help out, so, oftentimes you'll drive in from the lake, you'll zoom in to help out because, you want what's best for the district. But
You want to hire the people that you know
Yeah.
you're hiring.
although if you're hiring in July, sometimes it's not ideal, you're not. Yeah. Ideal hiring times, right?
Yeah, and there's a lot of discussion across the district on voice and choice and making sure that folks are involved in the decision-making process. So I was just curious on how that was handled. To make sure that somebody within the building is available to make sure that that's happening. Thank you.
Well, and that's where this next part that we put in kind of comes in, like if you needed someone to come in during July off contract. To allow them to maybe flex a day or two at the superintendent's discretion. To maybe that push back either a non-student contact day. Like, so they could come in and it'd be part of, it'd be at least. In our eyes, it'd be a way to incentivize more people to come in and help out with the process. If you know that I'm off contract, I don't have to come in, but if I come in, I can take. A non-student contact day in June. I can get out one day earlier up, where I'm not working now here, once I get my work done. So
Would be a different day that's being used, would that be? How would that be decided? Your discretion, superintendent's discretion, what?
it'd be at the superintendent's discretion, you'd have to like apply for, like. If in July we have an interview. Someone calls and says, hey, this person was able to set up an interview, can you come in and help interview? You email the superintendent, say, hey, can I use this as a flex day? And then you would have to get that date approved in the future.
Okay,
If it was a PD day that you're like, hey, it's a non-student contact PD day. And you try to use it, but you apply for it and superintendent's like, no, this is important, you need to be here. That could be denied, but it banked towards that. Just allows some flexibility to bring in, because besides, 1 or 2 people, the whole month of July, and there's no admin on contract. So if something does come up, it does give a little bit more impetus, like, hey, come in and help. And you can, we're not just trying to use you as free labor, this can be something for that.
Okay.
And that's also kind of the bottom here, the 2 paid contractual days for attending the North Dakota Council of Educational Leaders. In the past, it wasn't specified as fall, but that's the one where the school was not in session, so I'm guessing that's traditionally what that would be for. And then we just put in like that could be a flex day. Or you would have to take it at the appropriate leave days and get it approved.
Again, super, super.
Sure. So that though could be a day where if you came in July, that could be one day that you're like, I'm just gonna take this off. Non-contact, but I may not be able to go to the conference. Won't have to take a day of leave for it, it could be just a flex day. Is that it? I think proposal number 3, are we good moving on to the next? Okay. Yeah, we didn't bring in the salary matrix, obviously, because we talked about salary at another point. We did put in here, we know that we want to do some summer school, but with summer school comes supervision of teachers beyond school, supervision of students beyond what regularly has happened, and extra state reports for the summer school time. So we just put in a stipend that would go to an elementary K-8 principal that agrees to this. We left out the high school because there's that extra days in the high school principal that runs summer school right now. So that wasn't included.
Yeah, we got all of 226 together. Outside of, it's outside your.
It is not in the contract of time if you have to go beyond that. But that's where we do also want to, maybe if someone's doing summer school, still give the district the right to vary the start and end dates of contracts. So that someone maybe started a little later, but they could do summer school, but still did. I know that there's some not so fun state reporting that goes with that to get the money. And so that all becomes part of that task. So it's just something to kind of maybe motivate more principals to want to do summer school, because we do know it's something that the district wants to push forward with. More opportunities. Personal leave. We just said, just move it. No more like worrying with that, it's 6 days personal leave. And that's just to grant another day of personal leave. And then the last one, we also want it to be your agreement. So it's the same proposal as you, we'd like to get together and figure it out and have it for 2 years again. And move forward. So that's our goal.
Understood.
Also.
Right, thank you. Anybody outside? Questions? Okay. Everybody just take a quick break here and take a few minutes.
We're good.
Okay, I'm going to turn the recording off. It is
You
6:34.
said Zoom, yeah.
Yeah, we were in there for
I guess I didn't go with ties, so I don't know.
Oh,
Friends.
and you guys were all quiet and respectful? I think
Well,
I'd have a hard
the
time
one
with
I
that during, if I was, there's all the
It was kind of a
stimulation.
somber movie, so, yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember what movie.
I don't remember the one that I saw. on
You just remember the
Netflix, but-
experience. That's good though. That's what you remember.
And they're huge, they're massive, because it's not just one screen, like there's multiple movies going on.
I
So
do
the
like
buildings
going
are
to the
massive.
IMAX theaters. Those are fun.
I bet you could do that at the IMAX
Really?
for like nachos, popcorn,
Yeah.
like that sort of thing. But if you want like a meal, not probably an IMAX. If that makes sense. They have like bar food,
I did stay
like
on
gas station food and things.
Cause it's so big.
See, if we would have got the compound, we could have put movie theater in one part of it, makes. Along with our food truck thingy at the
Yes.
Diola.
I'm telling you what, that would work. I 110% believe it would.
Can I use some of the deferred maintenance money to put the pads and the sewer and the power and?
Sure, why not? Yeah, maybe I want to invest in that too.
Yeah. We could buy the lot from the district for $1.
Yes, be fair.
That is fair market.
$1?
Yeah, because the ground is worthless.
That's so true. That is very true. And the building.
It's all the asbestos in there.
You'd have to just bulldoze that thing. But then, okay, maybe a stupid question. How do you bulldoze a building full of asbestos?
They have to abate it before they tear it down. You know, like, cause how when they
Yeah.
tear down old hotels like in Vegas, like the Tropicana or whatever,
Yeah.
they stripped it before they loaded it.
I guess that's true.
And we can have a party.
Or it
Lots of
just
it.
accidentally burns down and then you don't have to abate it. Although a brick building's kind of hard to build.
I've seen.
Hey, are we,
Yes,
Oh, shit.
whoa, when did that unmute itself? So I just had it muted. Like literally. Oh, there it goes again.
Hold
Okay, we're back, 7:03. We had a chance to, walk through your proposals, we had some discussions, I'm sure you did the same. Got a little bit of feedback, we're, as for proposal number one, we're, kind of looking at that and, wanting to think a little bit more about the implications about adding those folks to the unit there. Proposal number two, I'm still kind of thinking a little bit and, on what you're looking at for the changes in the contract year there and the leave. On the next page, we like the concept of the flex piece. We just want to think through a little bit more and maybe, wordsmith just a little bit, but we like the idea and, so that's good. We appreciate bringing it up. One question. One question now, so like if I come in for, an interview and, I might be stating this wrong, but, maybe an hour or two or whatnot. What are you flexing on the back end of that? Are you flexing an hour or two, or I mean, what's the, if you come in and work a day, I understand that.
And that's kind of what we're looking at as a day. So in the summer, if we're interviewing, we try to set up several interviews in a day. So we're not doing a one-off interview. We might, but most of the time we're willing to give up an hour, especially in the day of Zoom. Most of the people are interviewing online anyway, so giving up an hour is not something, that's one of those things you're just gonna do it. Just part of being an administrator is sometimes you work off contract, so. We're looking more at if we have a full day of interviews, if we have a full day of work that needs to get done, if there's a contractor coming in, we need to have someone there for or something like that.
Yeah, I would think if it was just like a 1 hour thing, we normally will hop on to Zoom anyways for that, to help out. But yeah, I would think that we'd specify we're gonna work at least a certain amount of the day for it to be considered flex. That seems appropriate that, I'm gonna put in at least a half day or a full day in order to flex.
Right.
So putting some guardrails on that plus wouldn't bother us.
Just different things we're thinking about.
Which makes sense.
Like I said, when we meet next time, I'm gonna probably play a little bit with some language and different things. But we're still kind of thinking on proposal 3 on the summer school piece and all of that, and of course, salary schedule is
In the future.
coming out. Same thing, we're kind of, we recognize the request for personal leave here. To address that, but we can, when agreeing on number 5, we'll tentative agreement on terms, so we'll put together a tentative agreement for the next time when we meet, so we can just go ahead and sign off on that. Any feedback or anything you've got for us on ours, if you had a chance?
Well, proposal 1 obviously kind of goes along with your proposal 1, so we weren't comfortable until we kind of maybe see what you guys are thinking and maybe come back some language back and forth. We were good with the tentative agreement on proposal number 2. Getting rid of that, cleaning that up. The tuition and reimbursement striking.
Let me, if I could, just for a second, just go back to 1. I do realize you've got more to that, but are you? Never mind. I think in my own mind, I know. Inside thought came up.
Okay. So yeah, we would be good on a tentative on number 2 to, clean that up, like you said. We want to hold off on 3 because we have the similar proposal that we think that we'd like to kind of see maybe some more work between the 2 groups together on. Proposal 4, we thought looked good. We would be in a tentative agreement on that. Same with proposal 5. I mean, just those are some of the cleaning up. We're good on proposal 6 with the change of the dates there. We understand all that, and then 7, striking there. We wanted to. We just didn't feel like on 8 that we could really do much without discussing it a little bit more with our people. at least the any absence. We would say that like this weather related, we're good with striking that language. It's just looking at the executive language. So we're gonna look at that more. But I just wanted to say, like, this part, we're completely in agreement with cleaning that up. That didn't make sense to us either in the long run, so we're good there. And yeah, on the last one, we definitely want a 2-year. We were, I mean, obviously, we didn't want to put the cart before the horse and say, you know, we're gonna do this before we've agreed on absolutely anything at all. You know, like, hey, let's do a 2-year agreement, but we have no idea what's in it.
I know.
So that's where we're kind of
At the same time, these are all tentative agreements.
true, pending the,
Subject to the, you know,
Yeah.
the big deal.
true.
Yeah.
So I mean, we're definitely in favor of a 2-year agreement. We wanna continue what we've been doing. So-
Quick question, going back to proposal number 3. I do understand, you know, there's things that,
Your proposal number 3?
yeah, I guess, yeah,
Okay,
just to be, you're okay with the striking of the kind of legacy language and that sort of.
yeah, I think we're okay with
yeah.
the 261. I mean, we probably would be okay if you put like if you just called it a year-long contract, because that's what it is. You start July 1st, you go June 30th.
And then any of the,
And then the one exception part, striking that, we're good with that.
and then up above, you know, talking about District 1, District 8.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was
Striking that, we're good with that.
I was pretty
That
sure
legacy
you
there.
were.
The only reason we're not is because we have similar.
Yeah, and the rest.
Okay. Well, we'll go ahead, I know you've got some things to talk about with your group. We're gonna go ahead and kind of do the same, and there's, some of these, you know, will be pen to paper, so to say, tweaking a little language and whatnot. Otherwise, I think we'll be in good shape for the next meeting. We'll put together minutes.
Sounds good. But just to say, I don't think we're ready for salary at the next meeting. We're waiting for some more legislature kind of information. So we'll look at yours. We might tweak a little bit of language to just see what we've got and talk to our group, and then
You got it.
we'll come back and we'll meet with you next Wednesday,
I think that's when we're set.
6 o'clock.
On the financial piece, do you guys feel you'll be in a position potentially the following week? There's not a lot, I think, of non-economics left at this point. You know, some of the contract terms is gonna really tie to the salary schedule.
I did think that week we would be ready to bring something and talk.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
We just wanted to
I
get
think
like
that's
another
kind of
week
our
on
plan as well, not next week, but maybe.
We wanted to
following,
push it to
so.
the meeting you were gonna run.
There.
I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah.
I shoot it straight to you.
That's appreciated.
We're just gonna flip the agenda and let you go first. We'll facilitate.
Okay. Touche.
If I win tails, you lose.
There we go. No, I think we'd be ready. Okay.
Very good. Appreciate your time and look forward to getting together again. And I think we've got 7:12 is what I've got. I'm gonna go ahead and turn the microphone off.